Years ago, a group of paranormal investigators, along with a local guide, set out to find a scientist and his students who had vanished without a trace. Their search led them to Lion Mane Manor, a sinister, decaying structure perched on the edge of an English cliff, resembling a vulture eyeing its next meal. I was one of those fools who thought I knew what lay hidden within that cursed place. As we arrived, a dense fog blanketed the cliffside, thick and unyielding even under the midday sun. Locals who had long avoided the manor due to its dark reputation had started to report strange phenomena: flickering lights in the fog, shadows where none should be, and the unsettling, rhythmic thumping that filled the night air like a colossal heartbeat. When word of these events reached the university, my colleagues and I, professors in paranormal science, were urged by the board to investigate, partly out of concern for their investment in the missing scientist. So, along with two fellow professors and a wary local guide, we embarked on the search. The fog grew thicker as we approached, each step seeming to pull us deeper into an unseen horror. The guide, a hardened local with years of cliffside experience, whispered, "This place isn't meant for us. It's wrong." His voice was barely audible, as though speaking louder might summon something from within the mist. A creeping dread gnawed at each of us, a primal fear that no logic could dispel. As we climbed the path toward the manor, its dark silhouette loomed ominously. The walls seemed to pulse in the fog, and the thumping grew louder, almost like the beat of the manor's own dark heart. "We have to press on," I urged, though my words felt hollow. We owed it to our missing friend to uncover the truth. The others hesitated, exchanging uneasy glances. Then, with resolve, we continued our approach. Inside, the chill hit us immediately, along with the stench of decay. Shadows danced in the corners, and the manor's oppressive weight bore down on us. The rhythmic thumping reverberated through the walls, echoing as though the house itself was alive. As we explored the lower floors, we found only dust-covered furniture, faded portraits, and decaying books. But when we reached the second hallway, the nightmare began in earnest. Strange, glowing symbols covered the walls, growing brighter as the thumping intensified. "These aren't decorations," muttered Dr. Wallace. "They're warnings, or perhaps, a ward." The symbols led us to the library, where a faint green glow seeped from under the door. Inside, the room was a scene of chaos: shelves toppled, furniture split, and symbols etched into the walls pulsing with a sickly light. The floor seemed to sag, and a chill rose from the ground. "The house, it's breathing," Dr. Hartman whispered, fear creeping into her voice. Wallace examined the symbols, his face pale. "We need to leave. This isn't just cursed, it's alive." Despite our horror, we pressed on. The rhythmic pulse now louder than ever. Suddenly, the floor split open, and black, shadowy tendrils spilled out, writhing toward us. Before we could react, they seized our guide. His scream echoed as he was dragged into the darkness, his body twisting in grotesque ways as the house consumed him. Panicked, we turned to flee. "Run, or we're next," I shouted, forcing myself forward as the tendrils surged closer. Upstairs seemed our only chance, hoping the fog wouldn't control the upper floors. The house twisted as we ran, walls shifting, contorting to trap us. The air thickened with a stench of blood, and guttural whispers filled the hallways. Just when we thought we'd escaped, the entrance sealed itself, leaving us trapped. Desperate, we sprinted toward the stairs, now hoping to break through the manor's walls. As we reached the top, the walls shifted again, as though the house itself fought to keep us within. Finally, we spotted a window. I grabbed both of my friends and together, we leapt. We crashed into the icy sea below. I fought to keep Dr. Hartman above water, and then blacked out. When I came to, I was on a fishing boat, with Hartman watching over me. "What of the house?" I asked, but Hartman's face grew pale. The fishermen had said they saw a dark fog rise from the cliff before the manor vanished entirely. It was gone, as though it had never existed. As we sailed toward shore, a low rumble shook the boat, and a dark shape rose from the depths. In an instant, a tendril shot out, snatching Hartman from my arms and dragging her into the blackness. I screamed her name, but she was gone, pulled back into the darkness. Whatever entity we had encountered wasn't bound by walls. It could emerge again, whenever it wished. I returned to shore alone to tell the world of Craven Moss Manor and the horrors that lurked within it. If you ever hear of a haunted house, heed my warning, don't investigate. It might just be waiting to feed on more souls. Story 2. Brenda and Samantha stood on the cracked sidewalk, staring up at an old, rundown cottage. The windows were boarded up, but a faint light flickered inside. Samantha fiddled with the rotting wood on the waist-high fence, skeptical. This can't be the right place. What was the address again? Brenda pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket, double-checking. This is supposed to be it, she said. Just then, a hand patted them both on the back. Startled, they turned to see a man with long hair in a poncho striding past them toward the house. "Are you two joining us for tonight's journey?" he asked over his shoulder as he continued toward the front door. Samantha rolled her eyes. "Did you see that guy? I'm out of here." Brenda grabbed her arm before she could leave. "Let's at least check it out." To their surprise, the door of the seemingly abandoned house creaked open, and a short figure waved the man inside. An old woman's raspy voice called out, "Are you two joining us tonight?" Brenda leaned in and whispered, "This place is supposed to be the real deal. Don't tell me you've never wanted to talk to the dead. This isn't talking to the dead. It's just some old lady scamming people," Samantha scoffed. "Just 5 minutes," Brenda urged. "If it's too weird, we leave," Samantha sighed. "Fine." The two climbed the rickety wooden steps, which creaked under their weight, but held just enough to reach the front door. The old woman waited with a toothy, yellowed grin. "Welcome, friends. I'm Myrtle, your guide for tonight." Inside, the house was in even worse shape. Peeling wallpaper lined the halls, and water stains patched the ceiling. A thin layer of dust covered everything, revealing ghostly footprints leading to the dining room. Myrtle handed them cups of cold tea, her eyes gleaming. "Please, enjoy while I finish setting up." Samantha eyed the cup suspiciously. "Yeah, there's no way I'm drinking this," she whispered, dumping it into a nearby plant. Brenda took a sip and grimaced. "Bitter?" Samantha smirked. "Let's just get to the dining room," Brenda replied, steering them toward it. A dimly lit chandelier hung over a large table draped in black. 4 others were already seated, the man in the poncho, an anxious couple holding hands, and Myrtle herself, busy adjusting 2 candles on the table. Brenda sat closest to the couple, pulling Samantha reluctantly to the seat next to Myrtle. "What brings you here?" Brenda asked the couple softly. "We want to speak with our son," the woman replied with a tremor in her voice. I'm so sorry," Brenda murmured, taken aback. Myrtle clanged a brass candle snuffer onto the table, silencing the room. "Tonight, we will call upon the spirits. Follow my instructions, and all will be well. Now, let us join hands and begin." Everyone held hands around the table, Samantha hesitantly clasping Myrtle's cold, dry fingers. "Close your eyes and visualize the person you wish to contact," Myrtle instructed. "Spirits, dead and dear, cross the beyond and make yourselves near." Samantha resisted the urge to roll her eyes, focusing instead on the strange sounds Myrtle was muttering under her breath, words in no language she could recognize. The room fell silent. Then, a door creaked open nearby. Samantha couldn't help but smirk, assuming it was one of Myrtle's tricks. "We'll begin with the couple," Myrtle announced. "Who is it you wish to speak to?" "Our son," the man whispered. "Yes, I feel his presence," Myrtle murmured. Soft, shuffling sounds echoed around them, and Samantha muttered to herself, unimpressed, she didn't even ask his name. Suddenly, Samantha felt a chill and opened her eyes, just a sliver, curious. The dim candlelight had turned a ghostly green, casting an eerie glow over the room. Brenda sat calmly, lost in the experience. But to Samantha's right, instead of Myrtle, she saw a transparent figure with horns whispering into Myrtle's ear, its finger pointing around the table at each of them. Samantha's grip tightened involuntarily. A loud slam brought her back to the moment. A new figure now stood in the middle of the table, a spirit of a young man riddled with bullet holes, staring at her with shattered teeth. The man and woman started to ask their question, but Samantha screamed, breaking the circle as she flung herself backward. Everyone's eyes shot open to chaos as a whirl of spirits erupted from the candles, filling the room in a dark, frenzied cyclone. "Stay calm," Myrtle shouted, trying to regain control as she attempted to snuff out the candles. A spectral hand shot out, sending her flying into the wall. A clawed hand reached from the vortex, slashing the husband's throat. Blood splattered across the room as the woman's scream merged with the spirit's laughter. Panic surged, and the survivors scrambled for the door, only to find it locked. Samantha tried the windows, but they were nailed shut. Desperation mounted. "We have to extinguish the candle," Myrtle yelled, clinging to an amulet around her neck. Samantha backed toward the hallway, searching for another way out. Brenda had been grabbed by Myrtle, who was being dragged toward the basement stairs by an invisible force. Samantha took a step toward her friend, but a tall spirit with a grotesquely disfigured head blocked her path. In a desperate sprint, Samantha fled to the second floor, with the widow and poncho-wearing man following close behind. They barricaded themselves in a bedroom, hearts pounding as they heard the spirit's relentless pounding outside. "It's just a bad trip," the man muttered in the corner, rocking back and forth. But the door soon shattered, and the spirit burst in, crushing the man's head in its oversized hand as Samantha and the widow escaped, racing back downstairs. "This isn't over," the widow gasped. "We have to put out that candle." Back in the dining room, they found the bullet-riddled spirit waiting, gripping the brass candle snuffer. The widow stepped forward, pleading, "Please, we just want to help you find peace." The spirit laughed, driving the snuffer into her hand with a sickening crunch. Samantha, eyeing the flickering candle, lunged forward and pressed her hand down, enduring the searing heat until, with one final breath, the flame died. The spirits dissolved into green smoke, and silence returned to the house. Trembling, Samantha staggered toward the basement. She found Brenda, badly injured but alive, and dragged her back upstairs as the distant sound of sirens grew louder. They had survived the night, but the haunting aftermath would linger far longer than the spirits themselves. Story 3. The village of Eldridge had a dark allure that deepened as twilight thickened around its cobbled streets. Crickets filled the night with their chorus, but hushed whispers among the villagers silenced the evening's usual melody. Fear clung to them, weaving through the cool autumn air. Mike sat in his attic, watching them from afar. Dressed in a worn hoodie and flannel pajama pants, he observed the town's nightly happenings on his computer screen. A dim glow cast shadows over the walls, illuminating a web of tacked-up notes, photographs, and red string connecting each villager's peculiar routines and secrets. In a private forum, other gamblers buzzed with predictions about how Eldridge's residents would behave tonight during the annual autumn equinox ceremony. Sipping his sarsaparilla Appleton, Mike's eyes gleamed with the thrill of the game. He was an astute observer of human quirks, after all. As midnight drew closer, activity flickered on his screen. Lantern-lit villagers gathered around a towering bonfire in the village square. One by one, they tossed crumpled letters into the flames, letters inked with confessions and grievances. The fire hungrily consumed each page, its smoke curling into the night like spirits seeking release. The annual ceremony held a ritualistic importance. Each year, villagers confronted their sins, seeking absolution from each other and whatever supernatural forces might be listening. But this year, a blood moon cast its ominous shadow over the event, stirring talk of heightened danger. The last blood moon had brought strange, inexplicable occurrences. Mike's heart raced, his anticipation climbing. Tonight could be his big break. A message pinged into the chat. "Someone's gonna hit big tonight. Bet on it." The forum buzzed with agreement, anticipation humming through the digital lines. Mike knew the villagers were oblivious to the fact that they were part of one of the largest underground betting rings on Earth. He'd felt a strange intrigue from the start, fascinated by the idea of wagering on the unknown. on ghostly entities rumored to roam Eldridge. As he scrolled through images of the townsfolk, his knack for predicting human behavior convinced him he was sure to win with GHOSTBETTERS. He watched each villager closely as they offered their letters to the flames, analyzing their gestures and expressions, typing his predictions with feverish speed. Guesses and theories flooded the forum as each participant placed their bets. Suddenly, the chat fell silent. A live video feed popped up on Mike's screen, a villager's shaky camera capturing the crowd as they stood, wide-eyed, around the fire. As they began chanting softly, something stirred within him, a chill of excitement mingling with unease. The smoke itself was the ultimate wager. Villagers held it sacred, believing it revealed the visions of their ancestors, a glimpse into hidden truths. The Paranormal Society had even developed a digital overlay to track each villager's reactions, recording biometric data as they encountered the smoke's spectral shapes. With the first toll of midnight, flames surged higher, and the smoke twisted, forming faces that seemed to taunt the onlookers. Villagers recoiled, horror plain on their faces, as translucent figures began to emerge, thin and ghostly, within the swirling smoke. The Paranormal Society's camera scanned each apparition, logging unique markers. As the night deepened, a sinister thrill ran through the online betting community. Mike watched, enraptured, until a villager suddenly looked directly at the camera and murmured, "Who did you kill, Mike?" "The ghosts tell us you killed someone." Mike froze. A shiver crept down his spine as he shut his laptop, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He picked up his phone, and to his horror, the live feed was still active. The villager continued, voice now amplified, "Our ancestors say you helped us realize we're being watched, but they demand a sacrifice. You promised to confess your own sins if you won." Mike's mind raced, flashes of guilt surfacing, buried secrets he'd hidden even from himself. All the confessions he'd burned, the sins he'd archived, the humanity he'd traded for his thrill of voyeurism, they now seemed to rise from the smoke, curling around him like accusing fingers. "No," Mike muttered, shaking his head, but the villager's eyes only sharpened, an unrelenting gaze that bore into him. "We know, Mike. You've counted our sins and ignored your own." The screen flickered. Suddenly, Mike wasn't just an observer, he was a target, judged by the very souls he'd exploited for his own gain. Panic clawed at him as the shadows thickened, and the spectral figures from the bonfire seemed to close in. Their whispers echoed in his mind, binding him to the town and to the Blood Moon's curse. The villager's spirits drifted closer, filling his attic with a bone-chilling presence. He tried to scream, but the sound barely escaped his lips, swallowed by the oppressive silence. That night, Mike became Eldridge's latest legend, a spectator pulled irreversibly into the haunted shadows. The Blood Moon bore witness to his fate, his death officially ruled a mystery, but the truth lived on in whispers. Eldridge had claimed another soul, marking him as its final sacrifice. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy chilling stories like this, please be sure to like this video, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button for more spine-tingling content.